A billionaire drowning in the emptiness of success finds unexpected solace in a simple cafe. A barista's genuine smile pierces through his hollow existence, becoming the one real thing in his artificial world. But as he hides his identity to preserve this authentic connection, he wonders, can something built on deception ever become something true? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The snow fell silently over Manhattan as Alexander Thornton stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars beneath him. At 45, Alexander had amassed a fortune that most could only dream of, a tech empire worth billions, properties scattered across the globe, and a name that opened doors everywhere. Tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, he was just a man staring into the void that his life had become. "Mr. Thornton," came the voice of his executive assistant Davis from behind him. "The board is expecting your decision on the Singapore acquisition by morning." Alexander didn't turn. "Tell them I'll need more time." "Sir, they've already extended the deadline twice. They're growing impatient." Alexander's reflection stared back at him from the window. Designer suit, perfectly groomed salt and pepper hair, empty eyes. When had that happened? When had his eyes become so vacant? "The answer is still the same, Davis. I need more time." He heard Davis sigh softly. "Very well, sir. Will you be needing anything else tonight?" "No," Alexander said, finally turning. "You can go home. It's late." After Davis left, Alexander poured himself a scotch. 30-year-old Macallan, the bottle worth more than what most people made in a month. It tasted like nothing to him. Everything tasted like nothing these days. 3 months since his divorce was finalized. 3 months of this emptiness. Charlotte had taken half his fortune, but none of his regret. 15 years of marriage reduced to signatures on papers and cold financial transactions. "You've built an empire, Alexander," she'd said on her way out. "But you forgot to build a life." Alexander drained his glass and set it down with unnecessary force. The phone call earlier had only compounded his mood. The doctor's words echoed in his mind. "The tests show early signs of hypertension and elevated stress markers, Mr. Thornton. If you continue at this pace, I'm concerned about the risk of a cardiac event." At 45, his body was beginning to rebel against the relentless drive that had built Thornton Technologies. Sleep was a luxury he rarely afforded himself. Real connections? Those had disappeared years ago, replaced by people who wanted his money, his influence, or both. The snow was falling harder now, blanketing the city in white. On impulse, Alexander grabbed his coat, not the tailored overcoat that cost thousands, but an old, worn one he kept for sentimental reasons. It had belonged to his father, a factory worker who died never seeing his son's success. "Going somewhere, sir?" asked the night security guard as Alexander stepped into the lobby. "Just need some air, James." Outside, the cold bit at his face, but it felt good, real. Something other than the climate-controlled perfection of his penthouse. Alexander walked without direction, letting his feet carry him through the snowfall. After several blocks, the cold began to seep through his coat. He looked up, realizing he'd wandered into a neighborhood he rarely visited, where the gleaming towers of Midtown gave way to more modest buildings. A warm light caught his eye. A small cafe on the corner, still open despite the late hour. Nightingale Coffee read the simple sign above the door. Through the window, Alexander could see a few customers scattered at tables, the space looking warm and inviting. He hesitated only a moment before pushing the door open. The smell hit him immediately. Rich coffee, something baking, and the faint scent of cinnamon. It was nothing like the sterile, upscale coffee chains he occasionally frequented during business meetings. "Welcome to Nightingale," called a cheerful voice from behind the counter. "Be right with you." Alexander stomped the snow from his boots and approached the counter. The woman working there had her back to him, preparing another customer's order. Her dark, curly hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore a simple green apron over jeans and a sweater. When she turned, Alexander was struck by her smile, wide and genuine, reaching all the way to her eyes. She looked to be in her early 30s, with warm brown skin and a smattering of freckles across her nose. "Sorry about the wait," she said. "What can I get for you tonight?" Alexander realized he hadn't even looked at the menu. "Just coffee. Black." She raised an eyebrow. "Just black coffee? On a night like this?" She gestured toward the window where the snow was now coming down in earnest. "Let me make you something special. Trust me?" Alexander couldn't remember the last time someone had asked him that question, if he trusted them. Usually he was the one demanding trust from others. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Sure," he heard himself say. Her smile widened. "Excellent choice. Find yourself a seat. I'll bring it over." Alexander chose a table near the window, away from the other customers. From here, he could watch the snow falling on the street outside and observe the cafe at the same time. The space was modest but charming. Mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and soft jazz playing in the background. A few minutes later, the barista approached with a large mug. "One Nightingale special," she announced, setting it in front of him. Cinnamon mocha with a hint of cayenne and homemade whipped cream. The drink looked nothing like his usual black coffee. A mountain of whipped cream topped the mug, dusted with what he assumed was cinnamon and cocoa. "I've never had anything like this," Alexander admitted. "Then tonight's your lucky night," she replied with that same warm smile. "I'm Olivia, by the way. I own this place." "Alexander," he said, offering only his first name. For some reason, he didn't want to say Thornton. Didn't want to see the recognition that would inevitably follow, the subtle shift in how she would treat him. "Nice to meet you, Alexander. Enjoy the drink. Holler if you need anything else." As she walked away, Alexander took a cautious sip of the concoction. The flavors exploded on his tongue. Rich chocolate, warm cinnamon, the subtle kick of cayenne, all mellowed by the sweet cream. He couldn't remember the last time he'd tasted something so alive. He watched Olivia move behind the counter, chatting easily with customers, laughing at something an older gentleman said. There was something captivating about her. Not just her beauty, which was considerable, but the ease with which she moved through her world. Alexander stayed until closing, nursing his drink and watching the snow fall. When Olivia announced last call, he was surprised to find he'd been there for over an hour. "Can I get you anything else before we close up?" she asked, stopping by his table. "No, thank you. It was perfect." He reached for his wallet. "What do I owe you?" $5 even. Alexander pulled out a 20. "Keep the change." Olivia's smile dimmed slightly. "That's too much for a tip." "The drink was worth it," he insisted. She took the bill hesitantly. "Well, thank you. Will we see you again?" Alexander glanced around the cafe, at the warm light and mismatched furniture, at Olivia with her genuine smile. For the first time in months, he'd spent an hour not thinking about acquisitions or stock prices or his empty penthouse. "Yes," he said. "I think you will." Outside, the snow had piled up, transforming the city into something softer, quieter. Alexander found himself walking with a lighter step despite the weather. Back in his penthouse, he slept without medication for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Davis was waiting with his usual efficiency. "The board is still waiting for your decision, Mr. Thornton." Alexander, feeling clearer than he had in months, made a quick decision. "Tell them we're passing on the acquisition." Davis looked startled. "Sir?" "Our analyst projected a 30% return in the first year alone." "The profit margins are built on laying off half their workforce," Alexander said, remembering details from the report he'd read weeks ago. "We can find better investments." Davis nodded, making a note. "As you wish, sir. You have a meeting with the development team at 10, lunch with the mayor at noon, and—" "Cancel the lunch," Alexander interrupted. "I have other plans." Those other plans took him back to Nightingale Coffee just after the lunch rush. The cafe looked different in daylight. Smaller, perhaps, but no less charming. Olivia was behind the counter again, this time with a young man working alongside her. She spotted Alexander as he entered, and her face lit up with recognition. "Alexander, you came back." "I said I would," he replied, approaching the counter. "Most people don't keep their word about that kind of thing," she said. "What can I get you today?" Another Nightingale special? I trust your judgment, he said, finding he meant it. This time she prepared a different drink, something with espresso and vanilla. As she worked, she kept up a stream of conversation. First time I saw you was last night, right? Are you new to the neighborhood? Just passing through, Alexander said vaguely. Your cafe caught my eye. Been here 5 years now, Olivia said proudly. Started with just me and a coffee machine. Now I've got 2 part-time employees and we're almost breaking even. She laughed, the sound bright in the cozy space. That's impressive, Alexander said, meaning it. He knew how difficult small businesses could be, how many failed in their first year. What about you? What do you do? She asked, handing him the drink. Alexander hesitated. Finance, he said finally. It wasn't exactly a lie. Wall Street type, huh? There was no judgment in her voice, just curiosity. Something like that. She studied him for a moment. You don't seem like the typical finance guy. No? What's the typical finance guy like? Olivia leaned on the counter, her smile turning mischievous. Oh, you know. Expensive suit, always checking their phone. Too important to smile at the barista. Alexander glanced down at himself. He deliberately dressed down today. Jeans, a sweater, his father's old coat. Nothing that would give away his wealth. I'm smiling at the barista, he pointed out. Yes, you are, she agreed, her own smile widening. And that's why you're not typical. Alexander took his drink to the same table by the window. The cafe was busier than it had been the night before, with a steady stream of customers coming and going. He watched Olivia with each of them, the way she remembered names, asked about family members, joked with the regulars. By his 3rd visit that week, Alexander had a regular table. By the end of the month, Olivia no longer asked what he wanted. She simply prepared whatever special she'd created that day and brought it to his table with that smile that had become the brightest part of his day. You know, she said one afternoon, sliding into the chair across from him during a rare lull, I've never had such a consistent customer before. Don't you have anywhere else to be? Would you prefer I go elsewhere? Alexander asked, surprised by how much the thought bothered him. Not at all, Olivia said quickly. I just figure a finance guy like you must be busy with important meetings and stuff. Alexander shrugged. I've been reevaluating my priorities lately. It was true. In the weeks since he'd discovered Nightingale Coffee, Alexander had been making subtle changes at Thornton Technologies. He'd turned down 3 acquisition opportunities that would have meant mass layoffs. He'd initiated a review of their supply chain ethics. He'd even started talking to his board about employee benefits. Davis had noticed the change. You seem different lately, sir, he'd observed. More present. Alexander hadn't tried to explain that for an hour or 2 each day, sitting in Olivia's cafe, he felt like a different person. Not Alexander Thornton, billionaire CEO, but just Alexander. A man who enjoyed good coffee and the company of a woman with a genuine smile. You never talk about yourself, Olivia pointed out now, stirring her own coffee. I've told you my entire life story, and I still know almost nothing about you. It was true. Over the weeks, Alexander had learned that Olivia had opened the cafe after leaving a high-stress job in advertising, that she lived in a small apartment above the cafe, that her parents had both been teachers who'd instilled in her a love of literature, hence the books that filled the shelves along one wall of the cafe, free for customers to read. Not much to tell, Alexander said, the lie sitting uncomfortably on his tongue. Everyone has a story, Olivia insisted. For instance, that coat you always wear, it doesn't match the rest of you. It's older, worn at the elbows. But you wear it like it's precious. Alexander's hand went unconsciously to the sleeve of his father's coat. It was my father's. See? A story. Olivia's eyes were warm. Was he in finance too? No, Alexander said softly. He worked in a factory, died when I was in college. I'm sorry, Olivia said, reaching across to touch his hand briefly. You must miss him. Every day, Alexander admitted, surprised by his own honesty. He never saw. He caught himself before saying, my success, who I became. I bet he'd be proud, Olivia said. Would he? Alexander wasn't so sure. His father had been a man of principle, who believed in hard work and fair treatment. What would he think of his son now? The cutthroat deals, the focus on profit above all else. Before Alexander could respond, the bell above the door chimed, and a young girl about 10 years old burst in, her backpack bouncing as she ran to the counter. "Mom!" she called. "Guess what happened at school today?" "Hey, sweetie!" Olivia's face lit up as she rose from the table. "I didn't expect you for another hour." "Early dismissal," the girl explained, then noticed Alexander. "Who's that?" "This is Alexander," Olivia said. "He's a regular." "Alexander, this is my daughter Luna." Luna studied him with curious eyes, the same warm brown as her mother's. "Do you like my mom's coffee? She makes the best coffee in the whole city." "The whole world, I'd say," Alexander replied seriously. Luna beamed. "That's what I tell everyone. Mom, can I have a hot chocolate? And can I show you my science project?" "Of course," Olivia said. "Let me make your hot chocolate and you can set up at the big table." As Olivia moved behind the counter, Luna continued to study Alexander. "You look familiar," she said finally. "Have you been on TV?" Alexander's heart raced. His face occasionally appeared in business news segments, and his company's products were in homes across the country. "I don't think so," he said. "I just have one of those faces." Luna shrugged, apparently accepting this. "Mom says you work in finance. My friend Zoe's dad works in finance too. He's always super busy and never comes to school stuff." "That's too bad," Alexander said. "School stuff is important." "That's what I think," Luna agreed enthusiastically. "Mom never misses anything, even though she works all the time too. She says moments matter more than money." Something twisted in Alexander's chest. Moments matter more than money. How long had it been since he'd valued moments? Since he'd been present enough to create memories worth keeping? "Your mom is very wise," he said. "Luna, hot chocolate's ready," Olivia called from the counter, "and I need to get back to work." Luna bounded away, leaving Alexander with his thoughts. He watched as Olivia helped her daughter set up a science project on one of the larger tables, listened to the girl's excited explanation, all while continuing to serve customers. The love between them was palpable, in the way Olivia touched Luna's hair, in the girl's upturned face as she sought her mother's approval. It reminded Alexander of something he'd lost long ago, something he'd been too busy building his empire to remember he needed. As he left the cafe that day, Alexander found himself walking slower, noticing details of the neighborhood he'd missed before. The small bookstore across the street, the elderly couple walking hand in hand, the street musician playing saxophone on the corner. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Davis, undoubtedly, with some urgent matter requiring his attention. For the first time in years, Alexander let it ring. Back at his penthouse, Alexander stood at the same window where he'd stood that snowy night weeks ago. The city lights still sparkled below, but they no longer seemed so distant. Somewhere out there was a small cafe with mismatched furniture, and a woman with a smile that had somehow become his daily medicine. He picked up his phone and called Davis. "Sir." His assistant answered immediately. "The Tokyo investors have been trying to reach you." "They can wait," Alexander said. "I need you to research something for me." "Of course, sir. What information do you need?" Alexander took a deep breath. "Everything you can find on Nightingale Coffee, specifically their financial situation." The next morning, Davis placed a folder on Alexander's desk. "Everything I could find on Nightingale Coffee, sir. It's not good news." Alexander opened the folder, scanning the contents quickly. The cafe was struggling financially, barely breaking even, as Olivia had mentioned. But what she hadn't mentioned was the notice of eviction tucked inside. The building had been purchased by a development company, and they were raising the rent by 60%. Olivia had 2 months to either pay the new rate or vacate the development company, Alexander said, looking up at Davis. "Who owns it?" Davis cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Marston Properties, sir. A subsidiary of Thornton Ventures." Alexander closed his eyes. Thornton Ventures was one of his many holding companies, created years ago to diversify his investments. He vaguely remembered approving the purchase of a block of properties in that neighborhood, with plans to renovate and increase market value. He hadn't considered the small businesses that would be affected. Hadn't thought about the people whose livelihoods would be disrupted. People like Olivia. "Can we reverse this?" Alexander asked. "The purchase is already complete, sir. The notices have been sent. To intervene now would require explaining your personal interest in this particular property, which might raise questions." Alexander drummed his fingers on the desk. "Find out who handles the day-to-day operations of Marston. Tell them I want to review all planned rent increases before they're implemented. May I ask why, sir?" Alexander thought of Olivia's smile, of Luna's excited chatter about her science project. "Let's just say I'm taking a more hands-on approach to our community impact." Davis nodded, though his expression remained puzzled. "Will there be anything else?" "Yes. Cancel my meetings for the afternoon." When Alexander arrived at Nightingale that day, he immediately sensed something was wrong. The usual warmth of the cafe seemed diminished somehow. There were fewer customers than normal, and Olivia's smile didn't quite reach her eyes when she greeted him. "The usual?" she asked, already reaching for a cup. "Please." Alexander settled at his regular table by the window. "Is everything okay?" Olivia's hands faltered briefly. "Just a rough morning. Nothing a few dozen more customers wouldn't fix." She attempted a laugh, but it fell flat. Alexander watched as she prepared his drink, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept glancing at an envelope on the counter beside the register. When she brought his coffee over, he gestured to the chair across from him. "Do you have a minute to sit?" Olivia glanced around the nearly empty cafe. "I suppose I do. Not exactly a rush today." As she sat, Alexander noticed the dark circles under her eyes, partially hidden by makeup. "You look tired." "Thanks," she said dryly. "Just what every woman wants to hear." "I'm sorry," Alexander said quickly. "I didn't mean—" Olivia sighed. "No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't snap at you. You're right, I am tired. Been up most of the night crunching numbers and making calls." "Anything I can help with?" She gave him a considering look. "You're in finance, right? Tell me, what would you do if your landlord suddenly raised your rent by 60% with 2 months' notice?" Alexander felt a knot form in his stomach. "That's what happened?" Olivia nodded, her eyes darting to the envelope on the counter. "Got the notice yesterday. The building's been sold to some faceless corporation, Marston something. Properties," Alexander supplied automatically, then caught himself. "I mean, that sounds like a development company name. Whatever they're called, they're killing this neighborhood. 3 other small businesses on this block got the same notice." She rubbed her temples. "I've put everything into this place. 5 years of 16-hour days, my entire savings. And now—" "What about a loan?" Alexander suggested, already knowing it wouldn't be that simple. Olivia gave a hollow laugh. "Tried that route this morning. The bank said my business doesn't show enough growth to justify the amount I'd need." She looked around the cafe with a mixture of pride and despair. "I built this place from nothing. It's not just a business to me. It's my home. Luna's home." Alexander felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was his doing. However indirectly. His company, his profit margin, his disregard for the human cost of business decisions. "There has to be a solution," he said. "If you've got one, I'm all ears." Olivia attempted a smile. "Maybe I should just find a rich customer who wants to be my benefactor." Alexander felt his cheeks warm. "Would that be so terrible?" Olivia's expression turned serious. "Yes, actually. I've worked for everything I have. It's not much, but it's mine. I don't want charity." "It wouldn't have to be charity," Alexander said carefully. "It could be an investment." "Right," Olivia scoffed, "because Nightingale Coffee is such an attractive investment opportunity. We barely break even in a good month." "Some investments aren't about immediate financial returns," Alexander said. "They're about potential. About believing in someone's vision." Olivia studied him for a long moment. You're different today, more serious. I've been thinking a lot lately. About what matters. About the kind of person I want to be. And what kind of person is that? She asked softly. Before Alexander could answer, the bell above the door chimed. A customer had entered. A middle-aged woman bundled against the cold. Saved by the bell, Olivia said, rising from the table. Duty calls. Alexander watched as she greeted the customer with a smile that looked genuine despite her worries. That was part of what drew him to her resilience, her commitment to creating a warm space for everyone who entered, regardless of her own troubles. For the next hour, Alexander sat at his table, thinking. Occasionally, Olivia would glance his way, and he would offer a reassuring smile. When the cafe emptied again, she approached with a fresh cup of coffee. On the house, she said, setting it before him. Sorry for dumping my problems on you earlier. Don't apologize, Alexander said. That's what friends do, right? Share burdens. Olivia's smile turned genuine. Is that what we are? Friends? I'd like to think so. Even though you're a mysterious finance guy who never talks about himself, and I'm a struggling cafe owner with a mountain of problems? Especially because of that, Alexander said. Look, I want to help you, Olivia. Not as charity, but as a friend. She shook her head. I appreciate the thought. But unless you can convince Marston Properties to change their mind about the rent increase, there's not much anyone can do. Alexander felt the weight of his secret identity pressing down on him. How easy it would be to simply tell her who he was, to promise to fix everything. But what then? Would she still look at him the same way? Would her smile still be genuine, or would it become the practiced, deferential smile he received from everyone who knew his net worth? Maybe there's a way to negotiate with them, he suggested instead. Development companies care about their public image. If other businesses in the neighborhood got together, created some media attention. Olivia's eyes lit up with interest. A community campaign? That might actually work. The neighborhood association has been talking about pushing back against gentrification. Alexander felt a twinge of guilt at encouraging a campaign against his own company, but pushed it aside. This was about doing the right thing, even if it meant opposing his own interests. I could help you organize it, he offered. I know a bit about corporate thinking. You'd do that? Olivia looked genuinely surprised. Don't you have, I don't know, stocks to trade or something? Alexander laughed. I can make time for what matters. The words hung between them, charged with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge. Olivia broke the moment first, glancing at her watch. I have to pick up Luna from her after-school program soon, she said. But if you're serious about helping, I am, Alexander assured her. Completely serious. Then come by tomorrow evening after closing. I'm hosting a neighborhood meeting here to discuss the rent increases. You could share your financial expertise. I'll be here, Alexander promised, already wondering how he would navigate this complicated situation. The following evening, Alexander arrived at Nightingale Coffee to find it transformed. The tables had been pushed together to form one large conference space, and a dozen people were already seated, talking animatedly. Olivia spotted him from behind the counter and waved him over. You came, she said, relief evident in her voice. I was half afraid you'd change your mind. I keep my promises, Alexander said. Quite a turnout. Word spreads fast when people's livelihoods are threatened. She gestured to the assembled group. That's Maria from the bookstore across the street. Next to her is Kai. He runs the vintage clothing shop on the corner. The older gentleman is Mr. Park. His family has owned the grocery store for 3 generations. Alexander recognized some of the faces from his visits to the cafe. These were Olivia's community, the small business owners who made this neighborhood unique. Everyone, Olivia called, bringing the meeting to order. This is Alexander. He works in finance and has offered to help us strategize. All eyes turned to him, curious and hopeful. Alexander felt a surge of nervousness, not a sensation he was accustomed to in business settings. But this was different. These people had no idea who he really was, and what he said next could directly impact their futures. Thank you for including me, he began carefully. I've been coming to Nightingale for a while now, and I've grown to care about this neighborhood. I want to help however I can. Can you stop Marston Properties from raising our rents? Asked the bookstore owner, Maria. Alexander took a deep breath. I can't promise that, but I can help you understand how companies like Marston think, and how you might be able to influence their decisions. For the next hour, Alexander listened as each business owner shared their story. The rent increases would force most of them to close or relocate. The neighborhood they loved, that they had helped build, was being priced out of their reach. The problem, Alexander explained, drawing on his business experience while carefully concealing his direct connection, is that Marston is looking at this neighborhood purely as an investment. They see potential for higher returns with upscale businesses and wealthier residents. So we're just collateral damage? Kai asked bitterly. Numbers on a spreadsheet? That's how they see it, Alexander confirmed. But you can change that narrative. Make it personal. Show the human cost of their business decisions. How do we do that? Olivia asked. They won't even take our calls. Social media campaign, Alexander suggested. Customer testimonials. Local press coverage. Make it clear that destroying the character of this neighborhood will damage their reputation and potentially their long-term investment. The group began to warm to the idea, suggesting ways to rally community support. Alexander found himself deeply impressed by their creativity and determination. These weren't just business owners. They were community builders, creating spaces where people felt welcome and valued. As the meeting wrapped up, tasks were assigned. Maria would contact local media. Kai would organize a social media campaign. Mr. Park would reach out to community leaders and politicians. And Olivia would be the face of the campaign, the passionate small business owner fighting for her community. What about you? Olivia asked Alexander as the others began to leave. What's your role in all this? Alexander hesitated. His role should be to simply tell her the truth, that he could stop this with a single phone call. Instead, he said, I'll help behind the scenes. Research, strategy, whatever you need. Olivia nodded, apparently satisfied with his answer. Thank you for tonight. Having someone with your expertise makes me feel like we might actually have a chance. The guilt Alexander felt was nearly overwhelming. He needed to fix this situation, and soon, but doing so would mean revealing his deception. Can I walk you home? He asked, suddenly not wanting the evening to end. Olivia smiled. I live upstairs, so it's not much of a walk, but you can walk me to my door if you'd like. The staircase to Olivia's apartment was located at the back of the cafe. As they climbed the narrow steps, Alexander was acutely aware of how different this was from his own luxury building with its marble lobby and private elevators. It's not much, Olivia said as she unlocked her door, but it's home. The apartment was small but warm, filled with books, plants, and colorful artwork. A hallway presumably led to bedrooms, but the main living space combined a tiny kitchen, dining area, and living room in one cozy arrangement. Luna's at a sleepover tonight, Olivia explained. Rare night off for mom duty. Can I offer you a drink? I do make things other than coffee, believe it or not. Whatever you're having, Alexander said, taking in the details of her space, the well-worn couch with a handmade quilt draped over it, the bookshelves overflowing with novels and cookbooks, the refrigerator covered in Luna's artwork. Olivia poured 2 glasses of wine and joined him on the couch. So, mysterious finance guy, I've been thinking. That sounds dangerous, Alexander teased, trying to ignore the way his heart raced at her proximity. I still know almost nothing about you, she continued. You come to my cafe almost every day. You've listened to all my problems. You're helping me fight a corporate giant. And yet, you're still a mystery. Alexander sipped his wine, buying time. What do you want to know? Everything, Olivia said simply. Where you're from. What you really do. Why you spend so much time in my little cafe when you clearly could be anywhere else. How do you know I could be anywhere else? Olivia gave him a knowing look. Your watch costs more than my monthly rent. Your shoes are Italian. You leave generous tips and never check the price of anything. You're not just some mid-level finance guy. Alexander felt a flush creep up his neck. He hadn't realized she'd been paying such close attention. "I grew up in Pittsburgh," he said, deciding to offer some truth. "My father worked in a steel factory. My mother was a teacher. They both died while I was in college." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "That must have been difficult." "It was. I put myself through school, got lucky with some investments. Did better than I expected. And now? Now I help manage other people's money," he said, the partial truth sitting uncomfortably on his tongue. "It's not as exciting as making perfect coffee and creating a space where people feel welcome." Olivia studied him for a long moment. "There's more to it than that, isn't there? To why you come to Nightingale every day?" Alexander met her gaze. "Yes." "Are you going to tell me what it is?" He took a deep breath. "Your cafe is the first place in years where I've felt real. Where no one expects anything from me except the price of a cup of coffee. Where I can just be Alexander, not—" He caught himself before saying Alexander Thornton, CEO. "Not what?" Olivia prompted. "Not defined by my job or my bank account," he finished. Olivia's expression softened. "And here I've been dumping all my financial problems on you." "I don't mind," Alexander said quickly. "I want to help you, Olivia. Your cafe means something to me. You mean something to me." The words hung between them, honest in a way Alexander hadn't allowed himself to be in years. Olivia set down her wine glass, her eyes never leaving his. "You mean something to me too," she said quietly, "which is strange, because I still feel like I barely know you." "You know the parts that matter," Alexander said. "The rest is just details." Olivia shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "Details matter, Alexander. They're what make a person real." "Then ask me," he said, "anything you want to know. Why do you look sad sometimes when you think no one is watching?" The question caught him off guard. He'd expected inquiries about his job, his background, his finances. Not this piercing observation that went straight to his core. Alexander struggled to find the words. "I built a life that looked successful from the outside. But somewhere along the way, I lost track of what actually matters. Connection, purpose, joy." He looked around her modest apartment, filled with evidence of a life richly lived. "The kind of success you have." Olivia laughed softly. "I'm about to lose my business and my home. I wouldn't call that success." "You've created something real," Alexander insisted. "Something that matters to people. Not just a place to get coffee, but a community. A home. That's worth more than any amount of money." "Try telling that to Marston Properties," Olivia said with a rueful smile. The reminder of his complicity in her predicament felt like a physical pain. Alexander knew he needed to tell her the truth, but the moment felt too fragile, too precious to shatter with revelations. Instead, he reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "We'll find a way," he promised. "I won't let you lose Nightingale." Olivia looked down at their joined hands, then back up to his face. Something shifted in her expression, a softening, a surrender to whatever was building between them. "Alexander," she said softly, "I'm not sure what this is between us, but—" He leaned forward, drawn by the warmth in her eyes, the question in her voice. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home, like finding something he hadn't known he was missing. When they pulled apart, Olivia's eyes remained closed for a moment, as if holding onto the sensation. When she opened them, her smile was both wonder and caution. "That complicates things," she said, "in a good way, I hope." "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I have Luna to think about, and a business to save. And you're still keeping secrets, I can tell." Alexander knew she was right. This couldn't go further until he was honest with her, but telling her now, after kissing her, would make it seem like he had been playing a game, like the kiss was part of the deception. "I want to be worthy of your trust," he said finally, "and I will be. I just need a little time." Olivia studied him, then nodded slowly. "I understand secrets, Alexander. I have a few of my own. But eventually, if this is going to be something real, they'll have to come out." "They will," he promised. Soon. As he left her apartment that night, Alexander knew what he had to do. The campaign against Marston Properties was set to launch the following week. Before that happened, he needed to fix the situation without revealing his involvement. And he needed to figure out how to tell Olivia the truth without losing her in the process. Back in his penthouse, Alexander called Davis despite the late hour. "Sir?" his assistant answered, sounding fully awake despite the time. "I need you to arrange a meeting with the management team at Marston Properties first thing tomorrow. Tell them it's regarding the neighborhood development project." "Of course, sir. May I ask what this is about?" Alexander looked out at the city lights, thinking of Olivia's small apartment with its books and warmth, of the kiss they'd shared, of the trust he was on the verge of betraying. "It's about doing the right thing, Davis, even when it's complicated." The Marston Properties management team sat nervously around the conference table, clearly unprepared for a direct meeting with Alexander Thornton himself. The company's CEO, Michael Barnes, kept straightening his tie as Alexander silently reviewed the neighborhood development plans spread before him. "Mr. Thornton," Barnes finally ventured, "we were surprised by your request for this meeting. Is there a problem with the project?" Alexander looked up, his expression neutral. "Tell me, Mr. Barnes, what was the strategic thinking behind the 60% rent increase for the current tenants?" Barnes exchanged glances with his team before answering. "Standard procedure for property rehabilitation. The current rates are well below market value. We're simply adjusting to reflect the neighborhood's potential." "Its potential," Alexander repeated. "And what about its present? The businesses that give it character that serve the community now?" "With all due respect, sir," Barnes said, "those businesses aren't the target demographic for the renovated properties. Our projections show we can attract higher-end retailers who can afford the increased rates." "And the current tenants?" Barnes shrugged slightly. "Market forces, Mr. Thornton. It's just business." Just business. The phrase echoed in Alexander's mind. How many times had he used that same justification for decisions that affected people's lives? How many times had he dismissed the human cost as an unfortunate but necessary aspect of success? "I'm modifying the project," Alexander said firmly. "The rent increases for existing businesses will be capped at 10%, with a 5-year guaranteed lease option at controlled increases." The room fell silent. Barnes looked stunned. "Sir, that would significantly impact our projected returns," the financial officer said. "The board expects a minimum 15% ROI on neighborhood development projects." "I'm aware," Alexander said. "The difference will be made up through accelerated development of the vacant properties on the block, which will lease at market rates. We'll also implement a small business support program to help existing tenants increase their profitability." "A small business support program?" Barnes repeated, clearly bewildered. "That's not our business model." "It is now," Alexander said, his tone brooking no argument. "Draw up the revised contracts immediately. I want them ready to present to the tenants by the end of the week." As the meeting adjourned, Davis approached Alexander in the hallway. "That was unexpected, sir," he said quietly. "May I ask what prompted this change of direction?" Alexander thought of Olivia's determined face as she organized her neighbors, of Luna's bright enthusiasm, of the community he'd witnessed at their meeting. "Let's just say I've gained some perspective," Alexander replied. "Sometimes the best business decision isn't about maximizing short-term profits. It's about creating sustainable value." Davis studied him for a moment. "This wouldn't have anything to do with Nightingale Coffee, would it, sir?" Alexander sighed. There was no point denying it. "The cafe is part of it, yes. But this is about more than one business. It's about the kind of company I want Thornton to be." "And the kind of man you want to be," Davis suggested perceptively. Alexander gave him a sharp look. "Schedule a press conference for Friday. We're going to announce the new Thornton Community Investment Initiative, starting with this neighborhood." That evening, Alexander arrived at Nightingale Coffee to find Olivia and several other business owners huddled around a laptop, reviewing their campaign materials. When she spotted him, her face lit up in a way that made his heart skip. "Alexander, perfect timing. We're just finalizing the press release for Monday's launch." He crossed to their table, an uncomfortable knot forming in his stomach. "About that," he began, "I might have some news." The group looked up expectantly. Alexander took a deep breath. I heard from a contact in real estate, he said carefully, hating the continued deception but knowing he couldn't reveal the full truth yet. There's been a change at Marston Properties. They're revising their rent increase policy for existing tenants. What? Olivia's eyes widened. How? We haven't even launched the campaign yet. Apparently, there's been some internal pressure from higher up, Alexander explained. They're going to offer existing businesses a much smaller increase, around 10%, with guaranteed 5-year leases. The news was met with stunned silence, then a burst of cautious excitement. Is this for real? Maria asked. Or some kind of trick? It's real, Alexander assured them. You should receive official notification in the next few days. I don't understand, Olivia said, her brow furrowed. Corporate developers don't just change their minds without pressure. Maybe someone at the top realized the value of what already exists here, Alexander suggested. That destroying a thriving community isn't good business in the long run. The group began to celebrate, the relief palpable. As the others discussed what this meant for their futures, Olivia drew Alexander aside. Your contact, she said quietly. They just happened to know about this decision before it was announced? Alexander maintained his composure despite her piercing gaze. I have connections in the industry. Word gets around. And you just happen to have these connections right when we needed them? Sometimes timing works out, he said, attempting a casual smile. Olivia studied him for a long moment. You had something to do with this, didn't you? More than you're saying. What makes you think that? Because you've been mysterious from day one, she said. And because I saw your face when I told you about the rent increase. You weren't just sympathetic. You looked guilty. Alexander felt cornered. He wasn't ready for this conversation. Not here, not with others nearby. Olivia, No more evasions, she interrupted. If this is going to go anywhere, she gestured between them, I need the truth. All of it. Alexander glanced around the cafe, at the celebrating business owners, at the customers watching curiously. Not here, he said quietly. Can we talk privately? Olivia nodded, turning to the others. I need to step out for a bit. Maria, can you watch the counter? Outside, the evening air was cool, the street quieter than usual. They walked in silence for a block, tension building between them. I'm not who you think I am, Alexander finally said, stopping beside a small neighborhood park. That much I figured out, Olivia replied, crossing her arms. So who are you, really? Alexander took a deep breath. My name is Alexander Thornton. I'm the CEO of Thornton Technologies. Olivia's expression remained blank for a moment. Then recognition dawned. Thornton, as in the tech company? The one that makes the smart home systems and phones? Yes. You're that Alexander Thornton? The billionaire? He nodded, watching her face carefully. But why would you? Olivia's eyes suddenly widened with realization. Thornton Ventures. That's one of your companies, isn't it? Which means... Her voice hardened. Marston Properties is yours. It's a subsidiary, yes, Alexander admitted. I didn't know about the rent increases until after we met. When I found out, I ordered them changed. Olivia took a step back, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. So all this time, you were the one behind it? The one threatening my business, my home? Not intentionally, Alexander said quickly. I had no idea about the specifics of the project until you told me. But you let me believe you were just some finance guy, Olivia said, her voice rising. You let me pour my heart out about how this faceless corporation was destroying everything I'd built. You sat in meetings where we planned a campaign against your own company. I know how it looks. It looks like you were playing some kind of game, Olivia interrupted. What was this? Slumming with the common folk? Getting your kicks by watching us struggle before you swooped in to save the day? It wasn't like that, Alexander insisted. When I first came to your cafe, I was just looking for a quiet place to think. I had no idea who owned the building. And after you found out, what then? Why continue the charade? Alexander struggled to find the words. Because by then, I cared about you. About the cafe. I didn't want you to see me differently. You mean you didn't want me to see you at all? Olivia corrected. The real you. You just wanted to keep playing regular guy while secretly holding my entire future in your hands. Her words stung because they contained a kernel of truth. He had enjoyed being just Alexander, free from the weight of his name and position. "I was going to tell you," he said, "after I fixed the situation. So I could be properly grateful." Olivia shook her head in disgust. "Do you have any idea how condescending that is? I didn't need a savior, Alexander. I needed honesty." "You're right," he acknowledged. "I handled this badly. But my feelings for you, for what you've created at Nightingale, those were real." Olivia laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "How would I know what's real with you? Everything has been built on lies." "Not everything," Alexander protested. "The time we've spent together, the conversations we've had, while you were hiding who you really are," Olivia cut in. "That's not a foundation for anything real." She turned to walk away, but Alexander caught her arm gently. "Olivia, please, give me a chance to explain properly." "I think you've explained enough," she said, pulling away. "You wanted to play hero. Congratulations. You saved the neighborhood. But whatever was starting between us, that's over." Alexander watched her walk away, the distance between them growing with each step. He had fixed the business problem, used his power to do the right thing. But in the process, he had lost something far more valuable. Back at his penthouse, Alexander poured himself a scotch, the same expensive bottle that had tasted like nothing to him months ago. It still tasted like nothing, but for different reasons. The emptiness he felt now wasn't the vague dissatisfaction of before, it was the sharp pain of specific loss. His phone buzzed with a message from Davis. "Press materials for tomorrow's announcement ready for your review." Alexander set the phone aside without responding. The press conference, the public relations opportunity, the positive coverage for Thornton, none of it mattered now. He had lost Olivia's trust, and perhaps any chance at the genuine connection he had found in her cafe. He walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Olivia was probably explaining to Luna why the mysterious Alexander wouldn't be coming around anymore. The thought of disappointing the bright-eyed girl added another layer to his regret. His reflection stared back at him from the window. Still the same designer clothes, the same carefully maintained appearance, but the eyes that had once been empty now held pain. Growth, he supposed, was rarely painless. The next morning, Alexander canceled the press conference, much to Davis's confusion. "But sir, this is a perfect opportunity to showcase the company's community commitment." "It's not about publicity," Alexander said firmly. "Make the rent changes happen quietly. No press releases, no announcements. Just do right by those businesses." "As you wish, sir," Davis replied, clearly puzzled by this new direction. For the first time in years, Alexander took the day off. He walked through the city, paying attention to the small businesses he passed, wondering about the people who ran them. How many other neighborhoods had been affected by his company's investments? How many lives had been disrupted by decisions he had made without consideration for their impact? By evening, his wandering had brought him, perhaps inevitably, to Olivia's neighborhood. He stood across the street from Nightingale Coffee, watching customers come and go. Through the window, he could see Olivia behind the counter, her smile professional but subdued as she served a young couple. Alexander knew he should leave, give her the space she had clearly requested, but something held him there, unable to walk away completely. As he stood watching, a small figure darted out of the cafe, looking both ways before spotting him and running across the street. "Alexander!" Luna called, reaching him with a determined expression on her young face. "Why are you standing out here? Why haven't you come to the cafe?" Alexander crouched to her level, surprised by her appearance. "I didn't think your mom would want to see me right now." Luna frowned. "Because you're really rich and you didn't tell us?" Alexander blinked in surprise. "She told you?" "She told me you weren't who we thought you were," Luna said matter-of-factly. "And I Googled you. There are lots of pictures." Despite everything, Alexander found himself smiling at her directness. "And what do you think about that?" Luna considered the question seriously. "I think it's weird you pretended to be normal when you could buy like 1,000,000 hot chocolates if you wanted. But Mom's really sad, and she was happy when you were around." "I made a mistake," Alexander admitted. "I wasn't honest with your mom, and that hurt her feelings." "Did you say sorry?" "I tried to." Luna nodded sagely. "Sometimes sorry isn't enough right away. My teacher says when you really mess up, You have to give people time to be mad. Your teacher sounds very wise. She is, Luna agreed. But also, you have to keep trying. Mom says giving up is never the answer. Alexander felt a surge of affection for this earnest child. That sounds like good advice. Luna glanced back at the cafe. I should go before Mom notices I'm gone. But you should come back sometime. Not today, but soon. I'll think about it, Alexander promised. Luna studied him for a moment. You know what my mom always says about the cafe? That it's not just about the coffee. It's about making people feel like they matter. She gave him a pointed look that seemed far too mature for her age. Everyone needs to feel like they matter, even really rich people, I guess. With that parting wisdom, she darted back across the street and into the cafe. Alexander watched her go, her words resonating deeply. Everyone needs to feel like they matter. Wasn't that what he had found at Nightingale? A place where he was valued not for his wealth or position, but simply for being himself. Over the next week, Alexander threw himself into research, examining every aspect of his business empire with new eyes. How many of his company's practices prioritize profit over people? How could Thornton Technologies become a force for positive change, rather than just another corporation maximizing shareholder value? He initiated reviews of all his real estate holdings, instructing his teams to develop community impact assessments. He established a small business support fund to provide resources and mentoring to entrepreneurs in neighborhoods where Thornton had investments. He even began exploring ways to restructure the company's supply chain to prioritize ethical labor practices and environmental sustainability. Davis observed these changes with a mixture of confusion and grudging admiration. You've certainly been energized lately, sir, he commented one afternoon as Alexander reviewed plans for a community-oriented workspace in a formerly abandoned building. I've been waking up, Alexander replied. For too long, I've been running this company on autopilot, following the same profit-driven playbook as every other CEO. It's time for something different. Because of the coffee shop owner? Davis asked carefully. Alexander looked up from the plans. Because of what she helped me see. That success measured only in dollars is no success at all. The notification of the reduced rent increase was delivered to Nightingale Coffee and the other affected businesses as promised. Alexander received confirmation that Olivia had signed her new lease agreement, securing the cafe's future for at least 5 years. He felt relief, but also a hollowness. He had fixed the problem but lost the connection that had come to mean so much to him. 2 weeks after their confrontation, Alexander received an unexpected message. It was from Olivia, brief and to the point. We should talk. Nightingale, 8 p.m. after closing. The hours until their meeting crawled by. Alexander found himself unable to focus on work, his mind constantly returning to what he would say, how he could explain himself better this time. When he arrived at Nightingale that evening, the cafe was empty, chairs upturned on tables, lights dimmed except for those behind the counter. Olivia was wiping down the espresso machine, her back to the door when he entered. It's open, she called without turning. Alexander approached the counter slowly, uncertainty making him cautious. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Olivia turned, her expression guarded but not hostile. I have had some time to think, she said, and to calm down. I deserved your anger, Alexander said. I wasn't honest with you. No, you weren't, Olivia agreed. But I've been thinking about why you weren't honest. And I'm not sure I would have been either, in your position. Alexander hadn't expected this. What do you mean? Olivia sighed, setting down her cleaning cloth. The first day you came in here, in that snowstorm, you looked lost. Not like a billionaire CEO, but like someone who needed a place to belong for a while. She paused. And then I remember how your face changed when I treated you like a normal person. Like that was something precious to you. It was, Alexander admitted. It is. That's the part I've been thinking about, Olivia continued. How isolating it must be to have everyone treat you differently because of your money or your position. To never know if people like you for yourself or for what you can do for them. Alexander felt a tightness in his chest at her unexpected empathy. That doesn't excuse the deception. No, it doesn't, Olivia agreed. But it helps me understand it. She came around the counter, leaning against it as she faced him. I'm still angry that you weren't honest sooner. But I'm trying to see it from your perspective, too. I never meant to hurt you, Alexander said. I came to your cafe that first night just looking for warmth, for something real. I had no idea I would find you. And once I did, I was afraid of losing what we had. The way you looked at me, talked to me, not as Alexander Thornton, CEO, but just as Alexander. The man who enjoyed your coffee and your company. Olivia's expression softened slightly. I've had customers fall for the friendly barista before, you know. It's part of the job, making people feel welcome. This was more than that, Alexander said quietly. And I think you know it. Olivia was silent for a moment, her eyes searching his face. Luna misses you, she said finally. She keeps asking when you're coming back. I miss her too, Alexander admitted. Both of you. She told me she talked to you outside the cafe. She's a remarkable kid, very wise for her age. A small smile touched Olivia's lips. She gets that from her father. He was always the insightful one. Alexander hadn't heard her mention Luna's father before. Was? He died 4 years ago, Olivia said. Car accident. That's why I opened Nightingale. I needed a fresh start. Something that was mine. I'm sorry, Alexander said softly. I didn't know. There's a lot we don't know about each other, Olivia pointed out, because we never really started from a place of honesty. We could start now, Alexander suggested, hope flickering to life. If you're willing. Olivia studied him for a long moment. I saw the news about your company's new community investment program and the Small Business Mentorship Initiative. It's a start, Alexander said. There's more to do. Was that because of us? Because of Nightingale? Alexander considered his answer carefully. It was because you helped me see what was missing, not just in my business, but in my life. Real connection. Purpose beyond profit. The chance to make a positive difference. And if I hadn't come along, if you'd never found this cafe, I'd still be that man in the snowstorm, Alexander said honestly. Successful on paper, empty inside. Olivia nodded slowly, as if his answer confirmed something for her. I'm not ready to just pick up where we left off, she said. There's too much that needs to be rebuilt, trust that needs to be earned. I understand, Alexander said, trying to hide his disappointment. But, Olivia continued, I'm willing to start over. Properly this time. No secrets, no pretending. Hope surged through Alexander. I'd like that. So would I. Olivia extended her hand formally, a small smile playing at her lips. Hello, I'm Olivia Chen, single mom and owner of Nightingale Coffee. And you are? Alexander took her hand, returning her smile with one of his own. Alexander Thornton, CEO by day, regular guy by choice. It's nice to meet you, Olivia. Really meet you this time. Their hands remained joined a moment longer than necessary, the simple touch conveying what words could not yet express, that despite the rocky start, there was something between them worth exploring. Something real that had nothing to do with wealth or status, and everything to do with two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. Would you like a coffee? Olivia asked, breaking the moment with a gesture toward the espresso machine. On the house, for a new beginning. I'd love one, Alexander replied, but only if you join me. As Olivia prepared their drinks, Alexander felt a sense of rightness settle over him. The path forward wouldn't be simple. There was trust to rebuild, differences to navigate, a relationship to develop honestly this time. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, Alexander Thornton was looking forward to the journey. Starting over was both easier and harder than Alexander had anticipated. Easier because the weight of deception had been lifted, allowing for genuine conversations and honest connections. Harder because now Olivia saw him clearly, not just as the regular customer who enjoyed her coffee, but as Alexander Thornton, Billionaire CEO with all the complexities that entailed. Their first official date was a week after their conversation at the cafe. Alexander suggested dinner at an exclusive restaurant, then immediately regretted it when he saw Olivia's hesitation. "Too much?" he asked. "A little," she admitted. "Maybe we could try something simpler, something that feels more us." Us? The word warmed him, suggesting a connection that had survived despite everything. "What did you have in mind?" Olivia smiled. "Leave it to me. Just dress casually." Really casually. That evening, Alexander found himself sitting on a blanket in Riverside Park, sharing a picnic that Olivia had prepared. Simple sandwiches, fresh fruit, and a bottle of wine that cost a fraction of what he would have spent at the restaurant. "I haven't done this in years," Alexander admitted, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Just sit outside and enjoy the moment." "That's the problem with success, isn't it?" Olivia observed, pouring them each a glass of wine. "You get so busy chasing the next goal that you forget to experience the life you're building." Alexander studied her, appreciating the way the fading light caught in her dark curls. "How did you get so wise?" "Hardship is an excellent teacher," Olivia said with a wry smile. "When you lose someone you love, you learn quickly what actually matters." She raised her glass. "To new beginnings," with eyes wide open. "To new beginnings," Alexander echoed, clinking his glass against hers. As they ate, they spoke more honestly than ever before. Alexander shared stories of building his company from the ground up, the early struggles, the eventual success that had both rewarded and isolated him. Olivia talked about her life before Nightingale, her corporate advertising career, the whirlwind romance with Luna's father, the devastating loss that had forced her to reimagine her future. "Opening the cafe was the scariest thing I've ever done," she admitted. "I had a small insurance payout from David's death, and I put everything into it. Everyone thought I was crazy to leave a stable career, especially as a single mom." "But you did it anyway," Alexander said admiringly. "I needed something that was mine. Something that would let me create the kind of life I wanted for Luna and me. A life with meaning, with community." "And you succeeded," Alexander pointed out. "Nightingale is everything you wanted it to be." Olivia nodded thoughtfully. "Most days, yes, but it's still a struggle. The finances are always tight. I'm always one major repair or slow month away from trouble." "Would you accept help?" Alexander asked cautiously. "Not charity, but maybe investment? Partnership?" Olivia gave him a measured look. "Are you asking as Alexander my date, or as Alexander the billionaire CEO?" "Both," he admitted. "I believe in what you've built. I'd like to see it grow, to reach more people. But I also know how important your independence is to you." "It is," Olivia confirmed. "But I'm not opposed to smart partnerships. I just need to know that whatever happens between us personally doesn't affect my business. Nightingale is my legacy for Luna." "I understand," Alexander said. "Whatever form our relationship takes, your cafe remains yours." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as night fell fully. They lay back on the blanket, looking up at what few stars were visible through the city's light pollution. "Luna would love this," Olivia said. "She's going through a space phase right now, wants to be an astronaut." "Smart kid," Alexander commented, "reaching for the stars." "Literally," Olivia laughed. "She's already planned her mission to Mars." "I'd like to hear about it sometime," Alexander said carefully. "If that's okay." Olivia turned her head to look at him. "She's been asking when she'll see you again. Would you like to come to our Sunday pancake breakfast tradition? It's nothing fancy, just something we do together every week." The invitation felt significant, a door opening to a deeper integration into their lives. "I'd be honored," Alexander said sincerely. Sunday morning found Alexander at Olivia's door, oddly nervous as he knocked. Luna answered, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "Alexander, Mom said you might come. Do you like blueberry pancakes?" "That's what we're making." "I'm in charge of the blueberries." I love blueberry pancakes, Alexander assured her, following her into the apartment. The kitchen was a scene of cheerful chaos. Flour dusted the countertops, and Olivia stood at the stove, hair pulled back, wearing an apron with "Kiss the Cook" emblazoned across the front. "Sorry about the mess," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "Sunday rules say we clean up after we eat." "Best rules ever," Luna added, returning to her task of washing blueberries. "Can I help?" Alexander offered. "You can set the table," Olivia suggested. "Plates are in that cabinet, silverware in the drawer below." The simple domesticity of the task filled Alexander with an unexpected contentment. This was so different from his usual Sunday mornings of checking international markets and reviewing quarterly projections. Here, success was measured in perfectly golden pancakes and Luna's delighted laughter. As they ate, Luna peppered Alexander with questions about space travel. Did he know anyone at NASA? Basketball. Could he install a hoop somewhere near the cafe? And whether he had a swimming pool in his house. He didn't, but his building had one. "Luna," Olivia finally intervened, "give Alexander a chance to eat his breakfast." "It's fine," Alexander assured her, enjoying the girl's curiosity. "I rarely get such interesting questions at board meetings." After breakfast, Luna disappeared to her room to work on a school project, leaving Alexander and Olivia to clean up together. "Thank you for including me today," Alexander said as he dried the dishes Olivia washed. "This has been wonderful." Olivia handed him another plate. "You look different here," she observed. "More relaxed." "I feel different," Alexander admitted, "in a good way." "Luna likes you," Olivia said. "She doesn't warm up to people easily." "I like her too, she's remarkable." Olivia's expression turned more serious. "Alexander, I need to be clear about something. Luna's well-being comes first for me. Always. If this thing between us is going somewhere, you need to understand what that means." "Tell me," Alexander said, setting down the towel to give her his full attention. "It means we move at a pace that's good for her. It means being consistent and reliable. She's already lost one important man in her life. I won't let her get attached to someone who might disappear." The weight of responsibility in her words struck Alexander forcefully. This wasn't just about his feelings for Olivia. There was a child involved, one who had already experienced profound loss. "I understand," he said solemnly. "And I want you to know, I'm not taking any of this lightly. Not my feelings for you, and not what it would mean to be part of Luna's life." Olivia studied his face, apparently satisfied with what she saw there. "Good. Because I think I'm falling for you, Alexander Thornton. The real you. And that terrifies me." Alexander reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. "It terrifies me, too. But in the best possible way." The weeks that followed took on a rhythm that felt increasingly natural. Alexander still attended to his company responsibilities, but he delegated more, prioritized differently. 3 evenings a week he would come to Nightingale after closing, sometimes helping Olivia with inventory or bookkeeping, sometimes just talking as she cleaned up. Sunday pancake breakfasts became a regular tradition, with Luna increasingly treating him as a fixture in their lives. At Thornton Technologies, the changes Alexander had initiated were beginning to take root. The Community Investment Initiative had expanded beyond the initial neighborhood, now focusing on sustainable development in underserved areas across the city. A new small business accelerator program provided resources and mentoring to entrepreneurs who might otherwise be displaced by gentrification. "The board is actually impressed," Davis reported after a quarterly review meeting. "They were skeptical at first, but the community goodwill is translating to positive press and consumer loyalty." "It's not about the press," Alexander reminded him. "It's about doing business differently, creating value that goes beyond the bottom line." Davis nodded, a hint of a smile on his usually stoic face. "If I may say so, sir, you seem happier these days. More purposeful." "I am," Alexander acknowledged. "For the first time in a long time, I'm building something meaningful." One evening in early summer, Alexander arrived at Nightingale to find Olivia sitting at a table surrounded by paperwork, a worried frown creasing her forehead. "What's wrong?" he asked, sliding into the chair across from her. Olivia sighed, rubbing her temples. "The coffee supplier I've used since opening is shutting down." The owner's retiring and his kids don't want to take over the business. And that's bad because his beans are what give Nightingale its distinctive flavor. I've built my reputation on that coffee. Finding a new supplier with the same quality and ethical sourcing is going to be a nightmare. She gestured to the papers scattered across the table. I've been calling around all day. The options are either low quality or completely unaffordable. Alexander considered the problem. What if you didn't have to choose? What if you could ensure the quality and ethics while keeping costs manageable? Olivia gave him a wary look. If you're about to offer to subsidize my coffee beans, remember our agreement about my business independence. I'm not, Alexander assured her. I'm thinking about something more sustainable. What if you partnered directly with coffee growers? Cut out the middlemen. Direct trade? Olivia looked thoughtful. I've considered it, but the logistics are overwhelming for a business my size. The minimum orders, the import regulations, the shipping costs. But what if you weren't doing it alone? Alexander leaned forward, excitement building as the idea took shape. What if you created a cooperative with other independent cafes? Pooled your purchasing power? Olivia's eyes widened as she caught his vision. A small business coffee collective. That could work. We could negotiate better prices together, ensure ethical practices, maybe even fund community improvements in the growing regions. Exactly, Alexander said. And you already have connections with other cafe owners through the neighborhood association. This could be huge, Olivia said, mind clearly racing, not just for Nightingale but for independent coffee shops everywhere. She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. This is exactly why I need you in my life. You see possibilities I might miss. The comment, casual as it was, warmed Alexander deeply. In his corporate world, people valued his wealth, his power, his connections, but Olivia valued his perspective, his ideas, his support. With her, he wasn't just his bank account or his company, he was a partner. Over the next month, the coffee collective took shape. Olivia reached out to cafe owners across the city, many of whom faced similar challenges with suppliers. Alexander provided guidance on the business structure and logistics, careful to stay in the background rather than overshadowing Olivia's leadership. One evening, after a particularly successful meeting with potential collective members, they walked hand in hand through the neighborhood, the summer air warm around them. I can't believe how quickly this is coming together, Olivia marveled. 6 weeks ago, I was panicking about losing my coffee supplier. Now we're creating something that could change how small cafes do business. It's all you, Alexander said. Your vision, your relationships, your drive. Not all me, Olivia corrected, squeezing his hand. We make a good team. The simple statement carried profound meaning for Alexander. A team equals bringing different strengths to a shared goal. Yes, he agreed softly, we do. They stopped at a small neighborhood park, sitting on a bench beneath a flowering tree. The same park, Alexander realized, where months ago she had confronted him about his deception. How far they had come since then. Alexander, Olivia said thoughtfully, where do you see this going? Us, I mean. The question caught him off guard, though he had been thinking about it himself. Honestly, I see a future. One where I'm part of your life and Luna's. One where we continue building things together, both the coffee collective and whatever comes next. That's what I want too, Olivia admitted. But I'm also scared. Our worlds are still so different. Do they have to be? Alexander asked. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About what really matters to me. About the kind of life I want to live. And what kind is that? Alexander looked at her. This woman who had transformed his understanding of success and fulfillment. A life with purpose. With community. With love. He took a deep breath. A life with you and Luna, if you'll have me. Olivia's eyes widened. Alexander, are you? Not proposing, he clarified quickly. Not yet. But I want you to know that's where my heart is heading. I love you, Olivia. I love the life you've created, the community you've built. I love who I am when I'm with you. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for a while now. The kiss they shared was gentle, a promise of deeper commitment to come. When they pulled apart, Alexander knew with absolute certainty that he had found what he had been searching for that snowy night months ago. Not just a warm cafe, but a warm heart. A place to belong. 2 months later, the Independent Coffee Collective made its official launch. 20 small cafes across the city had joined, pooling resources to import directly from sustainable growers in Colombia, Ethiopia, and Costa Rica. Local press covered the story, highlighting the innovative approach to keeping small businesses competitive in a market dominated by chains. The launch party was held at Nightingale, the cafe packed with collective members, loyal customers, and community supporters. Olivia moved through the crowd, radiating joy and pride, occasionally catching Alexander's eye from across the room. "This is amazing," Maria from the bookstore said, joining Alexander by the window. "You know, when we first found out who you really were, some of us were skeptical. Thought you might try to take over. Make it all about Thornton Technologies." "That was never my intention," Alexander assured her. "We know that now," Maria said. "The way you've supported Olivia, let her lead, stayed in the background. It says a lot about you." Before Alexander could respond, Luna appeared at his side, tugging on his hand. "Alexander, come quick. Mom's about to make the speech, and she said she wants you with her." Alexander allowed himself to be led to the front of the cafe, where Olivia stood behind the counter, a microphone in hand. She reached for him as he approached, drawing him beside her. "Most of you know the story of Nightingale," she began, addressing the crowd. "How it started as one woman's dream of creating a space where everyone feels welcome, where coffee is just the beginning of something deeper. Community, connection, belonging." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. What you might not know is that 6 months ago, Nightingale almost became another casualty of development. Another small business pushed out by rising rents and corporate competition. She glanced at Alexander, a small smile playing at her lips. And then something unexpected happened. A stranger walked in during a snowstorm, a man who would change everything, not by swooping in to save the day, but by believing in what we were building, by seeing possibility where others saw only problems. Alexander felt a lump form in his throat as Olivia continued. "The Independent Coffee Collective isn't just about better beans or lower costs. It's about recognizing that we're stronger together. That success doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. That the true measure of value isn't just profit but purpose." She raised her glass of champagne. "So here's to new beginnings, to unexpected connections, to building something that matters. Together." The crowd cheered, raising their glasses in response. As conversation resumed around them, Olivia turned to Alexander. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for your help with the collective, but for everything. For showing me that not all wealthy men are the same, that some actually want to make a difference." "You're the one who showed me what making a difference really means," Alexander replied. "I came to your cafe looking for warmth on a cold night. I found so much more." Later that evening, after the party had wound down and the cafe was quiet again, Alexander, Olivia, and Luna sat together at the counter, sharing the last of the celebration cake. "So what happens now?" Luna asked, practical as always. "With the collective and everything?" "Well," Olivia said, "the cafes will start receiving their first shipments next week. We'll have special tastings, new menu items. If all goes well, more cafes will join." "I met with us," Luna clarified, looking between the adults. "Are we going to keep having Sunday pancakes and stuff?" Alexander and Olivia exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "Actually," Alexander said carefully, "I was hoping we might have Sunday pancakes more permanently." Luna's eyes widened. "You mean like you'd live with us?" "Luna," Olivia interjected gently. "That's a conversation for Alexander and me to have first." "But you're going to," Luna insisted. "I heard you talking about it last week when you thought I was asleep." Olivia's cheeks flushed. "Luna Bennett, eavesdropping is not acceptable." "I wasn't eavesdropping," Luna protested. "I was getting water and you were talking too loud." Alexander couldn't help but laugh at the girl's unrepentant expression. "Your mom's right. Some conversations need to happen between adults first." But you do love her, right? Luna pressed. And she loves you. I know because she smiles different when you're around. And you look at her like Dad used to in the old pictures. Olivia's expression softened at the mention of Luna's father. Sweetheart, it's complicated. Adults always say that, Luna sighed dramatically. But it seems simple to me. You're happier together than apart. So be together. Out of the mouths of babes, Alexander thought. Leave it to a child to distill months of careful navigation, emotional processing, and relationship building into one clear directive. Luna's got a point, he said, meeting Olivia's gaze. We are happier together. We are, Olivia agreed. But happiness isn't the only consideration. There's practicality, timing, compatibility of lifestyles. Mom, Luna interrupted. You're doing the overthinking thing again. Olivia laughed despite herself. I suppose I am. How about this, Alexander suggested. No decisions tonight, but soon we'll talk, really talk, about what comes next. All three of us. I'd like that, Olivia said softly. Me too, Luna agreed. But I'm voting for more pancakes. Just so you know. As they cleaned up the last of the party remnants, Alexander felt a profound sense of rightness. 6 months ago, he had been a man at the pinnacle of success but the depths of emptiness. Now, helping Olivia wipe down counters while Luna swept the floor, he understood what true wealth looked like. It wasn't the penthouse or the company or the billions in his bank account. It was this connection, purpose, love. The simple joy of being needed, of belonging, of making a difference in lives that mattered to him. Outside, the city continued its relentless pace. Somewhere, markets were opening and closing, deals were being made, fortunes were rising and falling. But here, in this small cafe with its mismatched furniture and warm lights, Alexander Thornton had found something money couldn't buy. A single mother and her daughter had offered him the greatest gift of all, the chance to be seen not for what he had, but for who he was. To be valued not for his wealth, but for his heart. To build not just a business empire, but a life worth living. And as Olivia reached for his hand across the freshly wiped counter, her smile as genuine as it had been that first snowy night, Alexander knew with absolute certainty that he had found his daily medicine. Not in the perfect cup of coffee, but in the imperfect, beautiful connection with the woman who made it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bells so you don't miss any upload from us.